Hello, everyone. My name is Rusty Ford. I'm a certified suicide prevention trainer. I also lead mental health support groups. I'm a state certified peer specialist working with people with mental health conditions such as depression, anxiety, bipolar. Yesterday, I shared a video of what not to say to someone who is grieving from a loss from suicide or grieving from any loss of a family member or friends. That was a long video. There was a lot to cover in that video. But this one is, to me, much more important. You really do need to know what not to say. And if you haven't watched that video, I encourage you to watch it because the things that we say, meaning to be encouraging, sometimes can be very destructive to somebody who is in grief. So uh, you're watching that video can help you out a lot when somebody close to you uh, has a family member or friend that passes away. But what's more important really is what you say and do. So in this video, I want to share with you, you know, some of the things that are appropriate to say, and some of the things that you need to do. Uh, you know, the big thing is being there for them is more important than what you say. I qualify that with, you know, it's more important than what you say, unless you say something that's very destructive to the person. That's why the previous video is important to watch. But just being there for them. A lot of churches talk about having a ministry of presence, and that's you're present, you're there, and you're there for the long run. Them knowing that you're going to stick beside them is really important, because what I see most of the time is family and friends are really there the first 2, 3, 4 weeks. But grieving can go on much longer than that. In fact, for most people, if this was somebody that passed away uh, that was really close to them, their grieving period is going to be much more uh, longer than just a month. And it could be 2 months, 5 months, 6 months, a year, or 2 years, and sometimes even more. I mean, I talked about in the last video about my sister's sudden death, and it being like somebody uh, you just had sharp instruments on their finger and they reached in and shoved it into my chest and ripped my heart out. Well, my grieving period was severe for a short period of time, and it didn't last a long time for me. But other people, because everybody's different and everybody's grieving is different, and so being there for the long haul is so important. It can bring so much healing and health, because whether somebody's grieving or not, our lives should be about love. And we all need love. We not all need unselfishness. We all need people that are there for us, and we know they'll always be there for us. That's just something every human being needs. But there are certain times where we really need it more. And during this grieving time, we need to know that we have people who love us, who are committed to us, that are going to be there. You, no matter how hard my grief is, or no matter how long, that your love is not going to uh, run out of energy. You're going to be there, uh, and so it's all about making that commitment to love. And people who are grieving need you know to have a lot of latitude, because grief has no timetable, and its steps are not sequential. You may have seen some of the graphs that you go into denial, you go into anger, and depending on the list, there could be 4, 5, or 6 things. But you know, and I have heard many years ago people said it happens in that order, but it doesn't. You know, um, you know, they may be it, especially when you're talking about suicide. Anger, you know, may come earlier than at other times. Denial is going to be there, and then many times that denial is going to be very strong. You just can't believe your family member uh, just ended their life. They made the choice of ending their life. They might not feel they had a choice. That's an important thing for you to understand. Is they're not being selfish. Quite often they think they're being unselfish. They so solidly believe that they're a burden to the family. They don't think they're hurting the family. You know, uh, so when somebody's going into loss, I want to give you six things you can say, and seven things you can do. And we're going to start off, since the last video had more to do about what you don't say. I'm going to start off with what you should say. One, number one, the first thing that really, comes to mind is, I'm sorry for your loss. You, I'm sorry. And it's really good to put the person's name in there. I'm sorry to hear that your husband, your child, um, Bill, Jim, Tom, Mary, Sally, Helen, you know, whatever, I'm sorry that Helen passed away. I can't imagine the the grief that you're going through. Number two is we talked about yesterday that one of the worst things you can say is, I understand what you're going through. Because even if you've been through something similar, everybody's grief is different. And it's not beneficial to try and say, I understand. You know, but you can say, I wish I knew what to say. He says, but understand that I'm here for you, that I care. You, you know, I'm sorry, I can't understand what you're going through, but I see that you're hurting. And I can see that the hurt and the pain is great. You, Another thing that's really important uh, is when somebody is grief, or somebody oftentimes will complain about their grief. Oh, I'm sorry you have to put up with me. And this is a place where it's very appropriate to say, no, it's okay for you to feel this way. You know, Somebody says, I just can't stop crying. I says, I can only imagine what you're going through, but it's okay. You're hurting, and have severe pain. It's okay to cry. It's okay that you don't want people around. It's okay that you're, if they're going through the anger stage, it's okay that you're angry. It's okay that you're, uh, you know, that you're, because the, it, people often talk about, my sister and I lived, uh, you know, uh, 4-hour drive away. So I didn't set the table for her. I mean, she wasn't living in my house. But some people will mention uh, things like, I wake up every morning expecting to see him there. Uh, I forget and set the table for them. And they're kind of complaining they're going through this, but this is a really good place to say, it's okay. Um, you know, Quite a lot of people do this. I mean, it's just part of, this person was so important to you that your mind's not ready to let go, and that's not a bad thing. You know, um, Number four on my list is, very few words are really good. It's more important to listen, and to listen to what they have to say. And silence is okay. Long periods of silence is okay. You, and depending on your relationship with the person, I mean, if they're just somebody that you work with, you may not, need to be involved. But if you're a real close family member, sitting with them for hours with very few words being said is okay. That you are in the room and you're sitting there with them, and you're ready to listen to anything they have to say, that can be very healing. Now, another thing to do is with the grieving person, or if you're grieving yourself, is to say the person who's passed away name often. You and so you know when somebody's grieving, you know, I you know I won't say your husband, I won't say your child, you know, I'll say, and I'm sorry you're suffering this loss, losing Bill, losing, because one of the things about grief, it's all about loss, and you're not ready for that loss. And knowing that other people remember the person that passed away is healing for a person, because they're afraid that everybody in the world is going to forget about their loved one. So you saying their name, um, often, and reminding the person that, uh, the person grieving, that the person who passed away, uh, was important to you yourself, and you feel loss, not the same loss as the other person, but you miss them as well. You know, uh, I have a friend that whose wife passed away, and you know, every time I see him or talk to him, we talk about memories of the person. You know, and that helps, and that really falls into number 6 on my list. Help them not forget the person. Remind them of funny things they said and did. Find talk about the uniqueness of the person, the way the person blessed other people. Always bringing up the positive things about the person that passed away. Help them remember. My sister passed away. What my I lost two sisters in the same year. If you've listened to the other video, my youngest sister ended her life with suicide. My dad had right after my dad's massive heart attack, and then about but he they brought him back, and he managed to live about another 6 weeks after that. So I lost and then 5 months later, my middle sister died of a massive heart attack. Just 6 hours before her uh, open heart surgery was to start. And my sister, who uh, ended her life with suicide, you know, she she was a prostitute. She was an alcoholic. She was not, as in her entire adult life, I never know her to be a happy or fulfilled person in any way. But when I talked to my parents about my sister and my middle sister before she passed away, we only talked about the good things in her life, because there were periods of time where she was, you know, trying to get off of alcohol, that she was doing better. But she was a hilarious person, an extremely intelligent person. You know, um, she read books that, 1 out of 4 words, I wouldn't even know what they meant. You know, and anytime she was around, she was the life of the party. We talked about those positive things, you know, um, about her, and so helping them to remember the good things, and when they're ready, and understand that you know um, you let them be the guide of when they're ready. But uh, just even in the very beginning, you can bring up some good things that you remember about them, and it may be a while before they want to sit down and just have a long conversation, just remembering the good things. But those are good things that you can say. you know um, just and that, I love you, I understand that you're hurting, and they need to hear these words: no matter what, I will always be here for you. And I will never forget the person who passed away. You know, um, and no matter how long it takes, I'm here for you. And not only say those words, but back them up, which is the hardest thing to do. Now, in the 7 things to do, number one is be present, be there. You know, um, and be there as long as you need to be there. You know, and and even longer, you still need to have relationship well after the person is you know healed as much as they're going to heal from the grieving, because sometimes people never totally um, overcome their grief. My dad and sister, I worked in mental health recovery. I grew so much during that period of time that I had built things into my life that helped me overcome these things relatively quickly. But I miss my dad so much. I mean, he was my best friend. We hung out, we fished together, we talked. There were times, since we were 4 hours apart, because he lived, right over by my sister. There were times that we would get on the phone and we'd talk a few minutes, and then we would just sit there and listen to each other breathe. You know, um, and I've wanted to have that with my mom, but after my dad passed away, I tried to have it, there, but my mom knows I'm always here and I will always be there for her. She remarried and is living, you know, 1,000 miles from me, but we get on the phone and we have long phone calls. I'm still there for her, but being present for the person. You know, um, the second thing is hug and physical contact when appropriate. It's not always appropriate to give hugs. You and you know, Unless you have a very close family relationship, you know, uh, most of the time, especially if it's a person of the opposite sex, it's always nice to ask permission. Can I give you a hug? You know, um, but you know, you know, since the person's got a feeling of loss, physical contact with the right people can help be a real blessing to them. Another things are simple little things: cards, phone messages, emails, text. Especially ones that don't require a quick response or any response. Uh, I woke up this morning and I had you on my mind. You know that I care, and I'll try to call you later in the week. They don't have to respond. You, um, as the healing process goes on, of course, you you can give them messages that require, oh, hi, thinking of you, give me a call when you can. You know, that requires a response, and over time that can happen. But in the early days, when the grief is severe and they don't have energy, they may not want to respond. So, but still getting the cards, getting the phone messages, the texts, the emails, you know, um, always being reminded that you care. You, Meals, that's one of the big things. But one of the things that happens is the first week, there's so much food brought to a person's house, they don't have room in their refrigerator. They're begging other people to take food. And so if you're close to the person, meals, after all that is gone, can be important. You Doing things, they're coming over and helping them clean their house. You Asking them, what can I do for you? How can I be you a help to you? And let them you tell you what they need. You, but so not just being there, but helping them do the tasks that they have a hard time doing. You, and then as it goes on, at first you may bring meals. Later, you may have them over for meals or take them out to restaurants for meals. You know, um, Times where, because taking them out can be such an important thing, because you know sometimes in severe grief you just kind of lock yourself in your house, and you don't want to force them out of their house in the first week or two. But as things start settling down, doing things with them, taking going on a walk with them, you know going to the zoo or a park or a flower garden or whatever they enjoy doing. Yeah, uh, you know, uh, I mean, if they're really crafty, you may take them to Joann's, uh, to go shopping. But uh, it's Christmas. Right now, making this video, it's getting close to Christmas. Taking them out to see the lights. But doing things with them you know, is something that can bring uh, healing. You know, um, Point five is kind of like point three. Cards, phone messages, and emails. You know, way after the person you know, uh, has passed away. As I mentioned before, so many things happen the first couple of weeks and then they're forgotten, and people need to know that they're cared about. So, not just in the first 3 to 6 months, but also in the 6 to 12, uh, to 18, to 2 years, to 3 years. I mean, these little messages to say, I care. You know, uh, and then uh, your own you, expression of grief. You, um, Expressing that you that that this is a loss for me too. Can help. Knowing that you don't, expressing that you don't understand why this happened. Because this is one of the things outside of what we say, uh, or including what we say. So often, one of our mistakes is we try to come up with an explanation of why it happened. And understanding why it happened does not help them. And especially in suicide, trying to figure this out doesn't happen. Expressing that you don't understand, and that it's painful for you too, or that you're perplexed at what happened, can help me feel like if I'm grieving, can help me feel like I'm not going nuts. If other people are grieving too, if other people don't understand why it happened, you know, um, and that's really important, in any grieving situation, but especially, when you're grieving over a suicide, because you are so confused. I mean, most, as I mentioned the other one, most people didn't see it coming. They may have known they had depression, but they missed all the clues. They didn't. And so this is a shock. I mean, they're stunned. And so when you're shocked and stunned too, it makes them feel same. You know, um, and when you have lost too, it makes them feel like they're not the only person that loved them. And so these are some things you can say and do. But one of the things I want to really emphasize, which I've tried to through the whole thing, is you know um, not to just do this at first, because as a retired pastor who's done my fair share of memorial services and seen way too many people pass away, uh, in my work in suicide prevention, you know uh, a lot of people who try to end their life, you know try to get it back together, but later on will try again and then complete the suicide, and actually die from the suicide. You know, uh, and everybody's right there for the first 2 weeks, and then it starts trickling off very quick. And at the end of the month, hardly anybody's involved in their life. So if you love somebody that's had a loss, make that commitment to be there over a long period of time. And again, as I close, I want to point out that if you haven't listened to the what uh, not to say video, I'll have a link right here so that you don't have to go hunt it down. In the description for this video, you'll see a link to that video. I think it's really important to not know to know not what to say, or know what not to say, uh, because there's so many things that we can say that sound okay to us, but are not helpful for the grieving person, or could be helpful to a few grieving people, you, but not to the majority. So to read through that so that you can understand you, uh, what not to say, because I'm of a certain age. I'm 64. I'm seeing a lot more people pass away that I know than I did in my younger years. And, and as I age, that's going to happen more and more. And so, I studied all these things, partially as a pastor. I didn't want to say the wrong thing. I mean, because I was talking to a lady um, who was suicidal, and she hadn't been to church in many years, but her husband passed away. No, excuse me, her one of her children passed away, and somebody said to them, "You," I said, "Well, God must have needed them more than you do." And that lady never stepped in a church again. I mean, the person somehow thought that that would be encouraging, but that was one of the worst things I've ever heard said to anybody. So going through that list of and understanding, you know, and some other things sound good. You need to be strong. You need to be well. That sounds encouraging to you, but it's not necessarily encouraging to the person that's grieving. So I wish you all well. I hope none of you have to use anything you learn from any of these videos soon. But there are going to be times in your life where people who are close to you pass away, whether it's friends, family, coworkers, people you know in a club or a church. You know, uh, and you need to be ready to love big, love strong, and be armed with the knowledge of what to and not to say, so that you can be a true blessing and encouragement um, to the people you're around after they uh, suffer a loss.